I've always had an aptitude to be able to play by ear, and I didn't realize others couldn't do it. So the first band I tried to put together was right after I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. I put a call out through the neighborhood to have my friends come over and say, we're going to put a band together. I had kind of a paper cardboard drum kit that I made out of cardboard boxes, this and that, and I had a couple of acoustic guitars. And so I put together 3 of my friends and myself and said, we're going to get together and we're going to learn to play some Beatles songs. And I could just hear the songs and pretty much make my way through them. But I thought everybody could do it. So I'd hand out the drumsticks and or the soup spoons on the phone books and on the boxes and the guitars. And I'd say, okay, we're going to try I Want to Hold Your Hand, okay? And we're going to try it. And I probably didn't know the keys, but I'd say like the second string, an open string, we'll start on that, which is an A. And I started playing it, and they're all just standing there holding everything, looking around. So, well, come on, just follow me, we'll do it. And I didn't realize that you couldn't play naturally. And that triggered something at first, going, wow, my friends, I don't think they're idiots. What's going on here? But I had an aptitude, which I have to attribute, I believe, to my grandfather, who I'd never met. He died young. He was a piano player, organ player in New York City. And he died young at about 40 years old. But I think that's where I get my ability, if it is ability, from him. So that was my first band, and I grew up initially in Yonkers and the Bronx, in that part of New York City. So we were doing things, a combination of like Italian and black music. So you have, soul, rock and roll. You had to have good hair. Clothing was important. Everybody had style. So that was a big part of it too as a kid. And early on, my brother was friends with like Dion, from Dion and the Belmonts and stuff. They were neighborhood guys. They weren't big shots. So that kind of got our start. As a kid, we would go over to Harlem, which was right next door, and we'd just see what was going on at the Apollo and stuff like that. So I grew up in a hotbed of Latin percussion too, had a ton of Puerto Rican and Cuban influences, and it was always coming out the windows. So you had Puerto Rican, Cuban, Italian, soul, black, if you want to say it was black. It was just, what a great R&B groove, and what a great blues groove. And country was actually really big in New York City too. So I had a ton of influences. There was a record store in every block, and everybody was playing the radio. So I was immersed in music and baseball, which we may get to. And later on, I moved to California for my last year of high school. First band really was the Penetrators, and that came in 3 or 4 different pieces, guys coming and going before it took shape. So probably the Penetrators were my first semi-big band. Now, speaking of the Penetrators, it was an interesting band, and we had everybody in that band from, Dan McLean, who later became Country Dick Montana, naturally with the Beat Farmers. Joel Kamak played drums also. We had 2 different guitar players. To start with, I answered an ad in the Reader, I believe it was, a San Diego Reader, or maybe it was before the Reader. It could have been in the San Diego Union when people would go through the want ads. And it was just Joel and Scott Harrington were 2 guys, guitar player, drummer, looking for a bass player. So I came and answered the ad, and all of a sudden I was in. So we had a trio. And after about 3 weeks, Joel got an offer from a band called the Hitmakers to join the Hitmakers, and they were moving to London. So now all of a sudden I'm in with just Scott Harrington, and we have a guitar player and a drummer. So we started noodling around. We'd write some stuff, and we were looking for people to join the band. We were looking for a lead singer, we were looking for a drummer, whoever fell into our laps. So to find them, I would do things. I would print up a flyer and talking about we need a drummer, we need a singer for this new band. And I would go to record stores and I would put these flyers in the record sections of my favorite bands. So it could be anything like old throwbacks to Elvis, to the Dave Clark Five, to who was current at the time. But I figured if they're going through those sections looking for those performers, that might fit with us. So we wound up going to a live show for a band called Monotone and the Nucleoids. And it was Gary Heffron singing for them. So it was just Scott and I at the time. And we saw Gary playing with them. We're thinking, this guy's putting on a pretty good show. And we're talking amongst each other saying, well, what do you think? Well, after the show, we'll go get a cup of coffee and we'll talk about it. So we're thinking, he didn't really sing that well. He didn't have a great voice. But man, he was flopping around like Daffy Duck. He was putting on a great show. And we're thinking, he could be something. So we talked to Gary, and Gary joined the band, who didn't even have a name yet. We weren't even the Penetrators yet. So it was Gary on vocals, Scott on guitar, and myself on bass. So then we started auditioning drummers. Oh my God, if you've ever seen the movie The Commitments, this was before The Commitments, but they're auditioning drummers. There'd be a knock at the door, and all of a sudden you'd cut to the outside, and the guy would have, like 10 drums and 20 cymbals and stuff like that, or a guy would just show up with next to nothing. So we had no idea how hard it would be to find a drummer. We auditioned guys left and right. Nobody was working. So Dan McLean, who later became Country Dick, was a piano player, but he had a good feel and an ear for music. And he said, well, let me give it a shot. I'll play drums there for you. So he came out, and we set up a drum kit, and he sounded really good because he knew his rock and roll. So it was, Dan, we said, well, what do you think? Well, of course, I'll give it a shot. So Dan became our drummer. So at this point now, we had Scott, Gary, Dan, and myself, and we were getting a lot of steam here in San Diego. Not just hot air, but steam. And we got offered the show to open up for the Ramones over at San Diego State. I think it was Montezuma Hall at the time, which was a pretty big show. And Scott was saying, no, we're not good enough. We're not there yet. We can't do it. We're not good enough. And the rest of us going, wait a minute, if somebody gives you a shot, you got to get in that ring. And you put your dukes up, and who knows what's going to happen here. You could land a haymaker, and all of a sudden you'll be kings. And Scott finally held his ground for a couple of weeks, and he said, nope, if you guys want to do it, you'll have to do it without me. We're saying, well, that's up to you, Scott, because we're doing the show, with you or without you. Here's your last chance. You want to do it? Nope, no, we're not ready. I'm not going to do it. So we started putting the word out. We need a guitar player. And luckily, Gary knew Chris Davies. And Chris Davies was playing with a local band called the T-Birds. So we said, hey, well, let's give Chris a shot. We'll have him come out, and we'll see, what he knows. And at the time, I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to have to teach him a lot of songs. And I think the Ramones show was like 9 days away. And I'm thinking, well, let's see how he fits. And, I get all the chord changes for him and that, and we'll have an audition for him. So we set up the audition. He comes over, and I say, okay, well, first song, let's try this. He said, okay, and do you still do it in A? Oh, yeah, okay, good. What happened was he would come to a bunch of our shows with a cassette recorder. He recorded all the shows, and he learned all the songs. So he was ready to go. So to make a long story longer, we took that Ramones show, played out of our minds, and a lot of people did say, maybe we stole the show from the Ramones, and we might have. But it was a wonderful show, but we had no fear. We were kids. What were we, like 21, 22 years old? No fear. And we did that show, and I'd say the rest is history, but along the way, we also added Jim Call. So we had a Jim Call on keyboards and saxophone. And then every so often, Joyce Rooks would come in as an extra, as a vocalist with us. Now, she had the band, the Dinettes, and she played around town with a few different bands. So Joyce would sing with us on occasion, too. So the Penetrators, we got to be pretty big, and we were like ranked top 10 songs of the year in different cities. And one of the cities was up in LA, the Hollywood area, where KROQ, Rodney Binghamheimer, really enjoyed us a lot. So we wound up being the top band in the top 10, 1981, I believe, was up there. And playing a lot of shows in LA, we started falling in with other bands from LA. And over the years, they became pretty big. It would be whoever, the Blasters to X to, some of the cheesy bands like Berlin or Missing Persons too. We fell in with a lot of people. So not only were we falling with the bands, but then we fell in with different producers and different clubs, which then opened up doors for me to play on a lot of different people's records and stuff too. And one of the things that I'll get to also here, if you buy a record and it says the record is such and such, And I'm not going to say whatever band, but such and such plays guitar in the band. Such and such plays drums. Such and such plays bass. Well, they do play it in the band, but they didn't necessarily play those instruments on the record. There are a lot of loopholes in the recording industry. I'll leave it at that. Certain people I've talked about different records that perhaps myself or others have played on that we don't get credit for. We get credit for who's in the band, and that is true, who's in the band. But anyway, I was lucky enough to play on a lot of records. Some were good records, some were great records, some were terrible records. But I was able to play with a lot of different people, a lot of different producers, and make a lot of friends. So over the years, the Penetrators opened up many doors for us to play with other people and to play on their recordings too. So that's a long answer to a short question. I was roommates with Buddy, but he was able to have the Rock and Roulettes practice there. So it was Buddy Blue, Raleigh Love, and Mark Williams were the Rock and Roulettes. So later on, the Rock and Roulettes, Buddy and Raleigh wound up joining the Beat Farmers. So that was the genesis in that house there too. Well, right now, it's funny you should ask what I'm doing right now. Well, I've been full-time with the Farmers for, pretty close to 20 years now. So full-time with the Farmers, and I play as often as I can with Sarah Petit. So we're very lucky, both of the bands. The Farmers were kind of San Diego's house band. Jerry and I will joke about that, where we've been playing for so long, we both play by ear, that we can just show up and play with somebody or back somebody up. Because quite often, well, once a year we do the Beat Farmers Hootenanny up at the Belly Up. We played recently with Albert Lee plays with us quite a bit. We'll do shows with friends from the past. I think somebody had mentioned Deke Dickerson had come down and did a show. So we do this once a year. So we are San Diego's house band where we do the Farmer stuff, but we also back other people up. And then we're playing with Sarah as often as I can. Sarah Petit is not only a great performer, but a great songwriter. The best way I like to describe her is she writes like Springsteen, but sounds like Bobby Gentry, Ode to Billy Joe. And she has an ear for a hook, so I have a fun time playing and writing with her too, where she has good ear for hooks and stuff. So what we've been doing lately now with Sarah, you may have not seen her playing live that much, we're trying to work on material to have it placed in film and TV shows right now. So that's pretty much the full two things I do, the Farmers, and then as often as I have time, I'll play with Sarah. There is an area, part of town, Ramona has a new scene, and it's probably more of an Americana country scene than anything else. They have a lot of different clubs going on there, and a lot of people have moved from San Diego, areas of San Diego, to Ramona. The Scanso Junction, which is off the 79, it's about a mile inland from the 8, and they do shows. They're all outdoor shows, so they don't do them in the winter, which is a drag. And we like to do a lot of outdoor shows. And we'll play locally in El Cajon at the Downtown Cafe, which is an outdoor place. But we can't do it in, say, December, January, February, because it gets very cold and it gets rainy. The Belly Up is still a great place to go see shows. Still, there are shows going on at the Casbah, which is an old throwback. But we try to do shows where maybe there's not an entry fee or cover fee, ticket price, where people can come in. With the Farmers, luckily, a lot of our friends and a lot of our fans are booze pigs. And what I mean by that, in the kindest sense, I have a great job. I go to work, I take my friends to work with me, and I can drink on the job. Not many places you can do that. So in San Diego, we try to do free shows where people can come in and order a couple of drinks and dinner or what have you. So we'll try to do those as often as we can around town. We do a lot of private affairs, and not in the sense that it's a pinkies up private affair, but we'll be hired by friends for their family, their groups, in fact, one of them, these guys are great guys, the Silver Eagles Motorcycle Club. They just sent us a check in the mail, a down payment for a show we're doing for them at one of their events in June of 2026. So we do a lot of events like that. We do the La Mesa Car Show. We usually do opening night and closing night. That's a fun place. La Mesa Lumber, will bring a big 18-wheeler and park it across 3rd Avenue in La Mesa, and we load up on that. So that's an old-fashioned car show, music, fun event. So we like the outdoor events, both healthier, fresh air, sunshine. We don't have to shower as much. So the places in town, they come and go, but there are a few that are starting to establish themselves. There have been a few that have closed recently, which is a shame, but it's like restaurants. It's a different day and age. One of the things that has changed, though, ever since COVID, the times of shows have changed. If it's a regular, 2-3 band ticketed show, yeah, a lot of those will still be whatever. They start at 8 o'clock, they end at 11 o'clock. But if you're playing in a club where we used to play till 2 in the morning, by the time you load out, it's 3, and by the time you get home, it's 4 o'clock. Those times have changed now, which I didn't think I'd get used to, but I have grown accustomed to it. We might start playing at 7, and our show will be done by 9 or 10, and we're off early. I tell you, I love that. By 10, 11 o'clock, I'm in a drive-through window to Mexican drive-through, and I've gotten used to the earlier shows. So that is something that's changed ever since COVID hit.
I am one of the artists in Spanish Village Art Center, which is now Village Art Center. We have been in existence since the California Expo in 1935. There are over 200 local artists in here, and we all jury in to do what we do. I have been here the 19 years, and I etch glass and do metalworks. I anodize, but mainly I make etched glass like you see. There's just a whole group of us here. You're going to see everything and anything here that you want. We're all working, which is kind of nice. You get to meet the artist and see what they do. And every day, 7 days a week, 11 to 4. I'm actually a dichroic art person, and my glass is very special. It's fumed in big vacuum chambers. So they put metals in the bottom, and then with vacuum and heat, those fumes of the metal are attached to the glass. Once that's done, then I can etch that coating off just like scratchboard. But I do use high-speed engraving. It's a hard surface because that is metal fumes. Then I'm going to stick it in a kiln at 1500 degrees, and that can take anywhere from 10 hours, maybe a little less, depending on the kiln, because I'm going up slow and coming down slow. It just depends on the effect I want. But you can see like my robots and stuff, I've got, lots of little pieces I cut, tons of pieces, and then they all get cooked. Okay, so I began doing glass 25 years ago. My history, for 50 years, I've been in graphics, illustration, marketing, and 25 years ago, my mother introduced me to the glass, and they had terrible patterns. So I started by drawing pen and ink patterns for manufacturers. So there are still 86 patterns out there that I've done, and even the manufacturer of the glass right now, I'm part of his homepage. I've drawn big circles of 19-inch patterns that people can buy and use. Very expensive to buy. A sheet of circle is about $450, but it is all hand engraved originally, and then it is mass produced. But it is a whole different world that if you can't draw, you can still have drawings in your glass. I have done absolutely everything in marketing. I even had my own design firm called Art Mania back in the 70s. I did everything from the Open Golf Classic right now. I used to do their graphics. I did the Avid School textbooks. I've done different logos you've seen throughout the city. I did the December Nights logo here for the park. Trying to think, so many different things I've done over the years, and I've kind of phased it out now. We used to even do the OMBAC Over the Line tournament book. That was a process, but we specialized. My son and I became my partner, and we specialized in large jobs because we had good control over a 400-page item. So we did a lot of that, but my husband was marketing too, so I did a lot of all those terrible web ads you hate. I did a lot of those for Apple, Dell, Cisco, all the technology corporations. So it was pretty neat. It was a very nice venue, but they sold that company to China and I lost it. So, but I did do hundreds of those. I also still do a lot of knife illustrations, the engraved knife blades. The last one I did was for Charlie Daniels. So it's been a while since I've done one, but I've done Harley, Endangered Birds, Cowboy Series, very serious illustration. This is my fun illustration. I like doing this part much better. It's a lot more fun and happy. Those guys, these are my babies. I love my robots, and I'm actually working on one that will be 2 foot tall. So I'm doing the Las Vegas Glass Show in April, and so it's gotten progressively bigger, and the next one will be even bigger than that. And it's all inspired by my son when he was in kindergarten. He brought home a construction paper robot just like that, Mr. Square, and he's now 41, and there's the result of it, and we still just do Mr. Square over and over. And then we've added the second one in all the illustrations. That's actually his younger brother. So we've got them both covered. But they're my favorite, and it's like selling a kid. I get to know where they all go. It's very cool to see where, you know. And most, I hate to say, they all go to adults. Because it's NASA Glass, that's who started most of this. People that are in space and technology love this stuff, and the robot is definitely a good poster child for that venue. So I have all kinds of stuff up in the NASA offices. So lots of suns, moons, celestial stuff. But my most popular right now is the bolos. I mean, they come in all colors and everything, but the bolo ties with the VW van, the robot, and the faces are all very popular.
I'm an artist here at Spanish Village. Right now I'm standing in Gallery 21, which is our outreach gallery, and we have different shows here every couple of weeks where the community tries to enter the shows, and they are chosen for the full year. So it's nice to be able to have that for the community here. This particular show is a small image show. It's a yearly show. I believe this is the 50th year. And it's wonderful because all the works are 12 inches or less, including frames and whatever else is needed. So I have 5 pieces in the show, and I've been here at Spanish Village for, I think, maybe 7 years. I lose track of time, but it has been a wonderful 7 years, or however long it's been. And the procedure is that the word goes out that there's a small image show, and artists from all over San Diego County can apply. And this year we have a wonderful show. So I do oil painting. A lot of what I do is on wood. I've been painting for about 30 years, and I had another career before that, which was a scientist. And I was an immunologist and always did artwork. But eventually the artwork won out, and now I've been doing oil painting professionally for about 30 years. So these are my small images. I love to capture a moment in people's lives. So I'm always walking around with my phone. It used to be my camera, but now it's my phone, taking pictures of whatever I see going on. So, for example, this was a little girl here at here right outside here, and you can tell because of the different colored blocks, which a lot of kids run around here and try to step on just the blue blocks or the pink blocks. So you see a lot of people hopping around. And so this is a painting that I called The Explorer, and it's sort of, to me, it was a moment in her life, and her parents were watching, and it was all very fun. Same here, I was at the beach and saw these kids playing in the waves, and I thought, what a great moment. And so I'd like to capture that. This guy, as you can see, also because of the coloring, he was also here, and he was just, sitting there, and I thought, he looks like somebody who could be thinking he looks a little bit weird in his little green outfit. And so the title of this is, Does This Make Me Look Fat? And to me, I really think art should have a sense of humor. And a lot of times I try to put that sense of humor in my titles. I was pretty pleased with myself for thinking of that. Over here we have Long Day at the Zoo, and it's just this guy holding on to his kid and his kid's shoe. And I thought, isn't that a moment that everyone of a certain age who's had kids can really identify with? And so none of these people know that I painted them. And I have had my work in shows, and I have someone come up to me and say, excuse me, but I think that's me and my dog. You know, and that's really fun for me to feel like I'm really painting what you see in everyday life, and so I really enjoy that. Like this was a little flower girl at a wedding that I was at who didn't look particularly happy. She was very, very worried about her role in the wedding, and so I thought that was a moment.
Vicki DeLong. I'm the director of Gallery 21, and this is an outreach gallery, which means I have shows from artists that are not related to or not in studios here at the Village. This particular show is called the Small Image Show. It's our 50th year, and we just had our reception last Saturday. So people would come, their families would come, and I'd present all their awards. And this show will be complete on February 22nd. And starting on February 24th, I'll have 2-week shows going along throughout the year. People last year juried them. I had jurors that looked at the art and said yes to a show. So I'll have 20 to 21 more shows during the year, every 2 weeks, all different mediums. We don't usually take video or some installation, depends on what the artists are doing, but there's paintings and photography, sculpture, everything. Well, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts that I got years ago, and then I discovered Spanish Village in 1996, I think it was. Took some pottery classes here, and then thought, this could be a cool place to be an artist. So since '97, I became a member, and I worked with ceramics for like 25 years. And then I moved into book arts and fiber arts. And I do have a studio number 1, up at the front. That all of that is in there. I'm here almost every day, showing my art, creating in the studio, because that's part of our thing. We have to show how we create our art. Well, what we're looking for are emerging artists to come in here. But as I said, the schedule for this year is complete. No, jurying might be for out there, for those places, not in here. I did the jurying in here in September, so then I could get this year's schedule all fixed and I don't have to find somebody at the last minute.